Absolutely.
Oh, great. And thank you so much for making the time. I'm glad that we can talk here.
Oh, a delight.
And so let me let me first begin by saying, I saw your just delightful biography on D.E. Harding, and
Yeah.
right prior to that, someone had uploaded a video of a dialogue I had done with Sage Bodhisattva this summer, and I guess part of my motivation in making the response was, I guess it's in some sense I want to do this very carefully because I did raise, I guess, some criticisms or some concerns, but I feel like I'm doing so at my peril because I have your video here, and I want to advocate it to people. I want to celebrate Douglas's work. I think that
Yes,
the
I'm
stuff
sure you do. Yes.
I think the stuff that you're doing is so important, and I think the stuff that Doug is doing is so important, or that Doug did was so important. And when I have some of these, I guess maybe larger concerns, and right now I've made the videos unlisted, the two that I did as a sort of follow up, because I'm not really interested in a critique. I'm going to call it, I'm interested in an ongoing discussion and dialogue with the hope for what I want to call an advancement and a kind of an extension of it.
Very good. Very
Okay,
good.
okay. So maybe the first thing to do would be to say a couple of items, or I would like to raise, of where I think I'm in agreement, or where I think I really resonate from my own experience with the headless experience, and the way that I think you talk about the way you see things.
Okay.
Okay,
Go for it.
okay. I love the end of the biography on Harding, where Harding's there in his old age talking about his conclusion that life is a kind of a mysterious gift, and his receptivity to it, the more that he came to appreciate that this emptiness is a room making nothingness that makes room for everything, and it's the inpouring of wealth that couldn't be held by anyone, but is a riches that each of us is open to. And
Yeah.
in everything from the sunsets to the sunrises, and to the love and all of the different feelings that come with this emptiness that, again, makes room for everything else. And
Yeah.
I, I can see myself, my true self, as being a capacity for world, and as being the very emptiness that, again, makes room for everything.
How amazing.
Okay, right. How wonderful. How wonderful. How wonderful. But I think there are different ways to come at it. And see, now this is where we could get at some of the finer discussions. I think there are some people who want to give a story that goes something like this. They want to say, in the beginning there was a kind of nothingness, and that nothingness negated its non-being. It said no to its non-being and upsurged into everything, and yet left part of its nothingness, its original emptiness, behind. So it's not how did nothingness become something, but how did, when the something emerged, the nothing never really got left behind, but got suppressed and hidden. And
Very clever.
okay, right. Again, this is very interesting. But there are other people who would say, no, that's really maybe not the best way to come at it. That it could be that there was a fact of materiality, and that fact of materiality happened without reason, and in some sense with no necessity, and yet the logic of it, again, it's very logic, was to try to remove that very contingency from itself, to try to found itself. But the attempt to found itself because it's all that is, fails, and the failed attempt to found itself collapses into little pockets of emptiness and of nothingness that, as they collapse, suck in being and make room for it. And now it sounds in some sense like they're very complementary, but they're very counter in some sense. And so the way that I would enter this is to say that I think that my true self isn't either my private self or my public self, but it's myself during dreamless sleep. And that dreamless sleep is true self. And then when I wake up, that's when there's a different kind of emptiness. There are many different kinds of non-being. And it's as if the dreamless sleep isn't a direct experience that I ever have, but I always awake from having been asleep. And the me who I can think of is never the true self. That is, even the very emptiness that makes room for the world isn't the true self. Now, it's a fragment of it. It's a part of it. But the true self, the ground, is the self without any distances. It's not zero distance. It's the neti-neti of dreamless sleep.
Yes, I understand, I think. I think there are many different ways of telling this story. And each way probably has some good things in it. And I think I understand what you're talking about there. For sure, one can never describe one's true self in words. I suppose in words you could say, nevertheless, I am it. But you're saying that in words.
Right.
I think that my direct experience now is simple and clear. My words will be different from yours. If I put it into words, I'm looking out of this emptiness now, and it includes everything. And it's only provisional to divide it up into a big self and a small self, or a public and a private. That's provisional. It's a way of communicating.
Right. So your experiments, again, they're amazing phenomenological descriptions. They're resources and their attempts in language, but you're going to grant that no, it has to be it's much larger than what comes across. Because now here would be another way to say it, that say my true self, and this is why dreamless sleep is so essential, is that my true self isn't simply the absence that makes room for everything that is the absence at center, but it's also the absence that is the background of the background. And if you do all of your experiments, not only will your experiments reveal that the center at 0 point is emptiness and still, but so is the background of the background.
Yes, exactly.
It's almost like a donut.
I know, yes. I know. It's very beautiful and mysterious. Right at the end of his book, The Hierarchy of Heaven and Earth, in the epilogue, Douglas says that constructing philosophical systems is a very good way of getting away from the simple reality. And he says, if all my work has diminished the flame of wonder one little bit in anyone, I should never have done it.
Right. But I mean, so let's see if we can't. I mean, I don't know how to do this. I don't want to be critical because I don't want people to think that I'm critical of his position. But let me see if I can come at it. So, in your Who We Really Are DVD, you make reference in the last segment toward the distinctions between the baby, the child, the adult, and then hopefully the seer.
Yeah.
Now, when I look around at the world, I guess I want to see that, I mean, even though we can talk about those as, again, we're using language to give metaphors for evolutionary stages, but it would seem that the cosmic mystery that is the room making with drawing that makes room for everything else, it wants it wants the drama. And again, wants is the wrong word. Logically,
I
it
think it's a good
implies
word.
it.
Yes.
Right? So, I mean, in some sense, I don't want to say that organisms which are unable to be self-conscious are the equivalent of babies. So, for example, fish. Okay, fish don't have... Okay, I can put my hands in front of me, and then at a certain point, my hands, they break from my periphery of view, right? Or from my center, and I can no longer see them. But now, fish don't have any hands, and fish, their eyes are on the side of their heads. In some sense, they don't even know they're there, right?
Exactly.
Right? See, they're simply nothing.
They probably have some, I imagine they have some sense of individuality, otherwise they wouldn't run away, swim away.
But in some sense, it seems like we don't want to say they're more true to being capacity for world. See, in some sense, it seems like that this mysterious dance of withdrawing that makes room needs not only the absence, but that which is made room for by that withdrawal.
Yes, for sure. Yes.
Right.
Yes. I think the identification with what we look like, which fish don't really do as much as we do, for sure.
As much as we can.
Yes, it is such an important thing. And as I'm talking to you now, I'm aware of being capacity for you, but I'm also aware of being Richard. And this is just supremely important. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And I would say that the one wanted this because it's happening. It wanted to be able to talk to itself as if it's talking to someone else, which it is. It's a beautiful development.
Right.
And all the drama is really what it's all about.
Okay, right. No, I agree. All the drama is what it's about. But in that sense, the successful development of everyone into a seer would be a failure of it. See what I'm saying? That there seems to be a sense in which...
I don't know about that.
Really?
Yes, because in my view, the successful... If you could, hypothetically imagine that, it doesn't mean we forget about who we are individually. In fact, I find that being aware of who I really am makes me more aware of being an individual and empowers my individuality. I think it would empower everyone's individuality.
See, well, I guess, I can respect that. I don't know if I want to say that's who I really am, though, yet. Who I really am is the dreamless sleeper, not the emptiness that makes room for the world. See, this is where I think we're parting ways. Okay, let me try it this way. Okay, so right now, I am face to no face. So I see you, I don't see myself. Now, Skype is a little funny here. I'm looking at myself in the corner while I'm looking at you, so it makes it a little odd. But let's just pretend that we're next.
No, I think that's very good. Both our faces are out there, and here is our no face.
Okay, you say our no face. Okay, that's where I guess we're getting at the question. So let's just say you and I are standing next to each other in front of a mirror. Now, we both see two faces in the mirror. How many no faces are there?
One. Yes. But you see,
No. But if you say the no face, you say the no face is private.
Well, you see, this is language. It's both private and public.
Yeah. See, okay, that's where it starts to get tricky, because if there's really just one no face while we're both looking at the mirror, then I should be able to think something, not say it, and you should be able to remember it.
Well, it doesn't work like that. That might be what you think should happen, but it doesn't work like that.
Well, I know. Well, that's why the language seems like it's not the most apt expression.
I think the way I worked this out, Corey, was I could see, as soon as I saw this years ago, I always see this, but I still had the feeling of being separate. And for a long time, I thought I was doing something wrong. If I see the one space, how come I don't know what you're thinking? Or how come I feel separate? All this. And eventually I had to come to the acceptance that I would always feel separate. And that this was not a bad thing. It was a good thing. And then I looked more deeply into what I meant by we. See, I have never directly experienced we. I've heard about it. It's conditioning. I've been conditioned to believe that you're there and you're thinking your thoughts.
No, see, this is where we part ways. I think
well, let
that.
me just finish.
Well, I think though that we
Can I
part
just
ways.
finish my thought?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes, I, at one level, therefore, I profoundly accept that we are we. I act as if you are there. That's what I mean. I act as if you are there, even though I have no direct proof. On the other hand, I see there is only one. So I see there is only one, but I act as if there are many. It's a rather beautiful condition.
Yeah, I guess I would try it this way. I think it's one and many. See, this is I think part, and I think you're in agreement with me there that it's one and many. See, I think part of the difficulty, and this was maybe what was precipitating my original video was, or the concern is that I think there are some people when they hear Harding stuff, they hear it as if he's saying it's all one. And he's not. He's saying that it's one and many. It's because my emptiness makes room for the things, and there's really no dividing line between who I am and the world.
Yes.
And so to that extent, I am the many. Okay, but now here's how we have to get at this. I think here's just how this would be the dispute. Some people think that the world is many and consciousness is one. I think that's what you're suggesting. What I would suggest is that no, the material world is one and there are many consciousnesses.
Well, you can put it as you like. I think that there are many ways to describe this. And if that's the way that works for you, I don't myself experience many consciousnesses in the sense of emptinesses. But I fully accept that you're looking out of this emptiness into your own unique view of the world. So I'm really, the different ways of describing this I celebrate rather than trying to find a one that is,
Well, no, I agree. I guess I'm trying to find, so much of your video comes from does this resonate with your experience, or is this exactly what you experience?
Yeah.
And for me, part of the real problem is that when I found myself, I found that I've always already begun. And every morning I wake up and I realize that awakeness is a periodic achievement of a dreamless sleeper, of a grounded place of earth that can only have itself by losing itself into a spectacle of otherness. And so it would seem that otherness is the very condition of my having a self. It's not that others are an occasional feature in my existence. They're a very condition of my being.
I understand, yes. Yes, the world is a very mysterious other.
Yes. Well, it seems like it's a radical other. And this is why, I want to go to the donut. And then I want to say that it's not simply the absence at the center, but it's the absence at the center and then also the absence that is the background of the background. That is, there always has to be a receding, non-given background to any ground for any figure. So there's a figure ground, but then the background has this receding.
It's always one step behind you.
It's always one step behind you. It's one step removed. And so to that extent, I could see how some people, maybe more Westerners, would fear a kind of, I don't want to call it blasphemy, but a fearing that one's claiming that one is the divine source. Whereas one could say that no, one is partly, a tributary or a thread within a tributary within a stream, or a fabric within a larger, a thread within a larger fabric, but that it's the larger, it's the absence that is the background of the background, in addition to the focal absence. See, this is why I think Heidegger wants to deal with the problem of the worldhood of the world. How does the world show itself? How is the world worlded? Do you see what I mean?
Yes, I do, yes. But on that back on that point of the background to the background and the fear of blasphemy, I mean, this is what many great mystics have had to come across. Meister Eckhart, the German medieval mystic, was talking about this. He had to be very careful with the Catholic Church because it's so easy to interpret from outside. You're saying I'm God. It's
Right. Okay, but clarify how you're not saying that.
Well, I think I would say language. I'm saying both. I am not and I am.
Right. Okay, very good. There's a
Yes.
non-duality that enters in.
Yes, and then you don't get stuck on one end of the spectrum, so you can appreciate what the other end of the spectrum is saying without having to pin your colours to either, because you're both.
Right.
And then you have a even richer celebration of this mystery.
Right. Well, I mean, if I say that I'm God, I mean it in the sense, though, that of a dreamless sleeper.
Yes, I know.
Right. I don't mean a guy who does magic or or something like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think part of the way to get at this again, background for the background, or the problem with identifying only with my private self or with myself as capacity for world is, I sometimes think of the loss of the tragic aesthetic in the modern world. So, for example, in the ancient world, the Greeks, they sort of imagined themselves and their ethical strivings and their objects of desires to be obstacles placed in their way by the gods. And they imagined the gods took a kind of pleasure in watching them in their drama. And so that there was a recognition of an aesthetic pleasure that comes from the outsidedness of the other. And I think that this issue is perhaps, it's a way to come into this question of what is otherness. Because I think for Sartre, as an example, Sartre had a goofy eye, and he was fairly ugly, and he had German parents and French parents, and it made him feel like an outsider in many ways. And he realized that part of himself comes into being through others and yet flees from him.
Yes.
Right? So there's a part of me that can only come into existence through other people, and that is me, and yet it flees from me. So it's not really part of my public self in the sense of known by me, but it's like I can't really have a beautiful face or an ugly face without other people.
Exactly, yes.
Right.
Yes, you come alive in others. The others know you and reflect back who you are.
Right. So like I'm everyone else but my own face.
Yes, except when you look in the mirror.
Well, then who is that? Who is that the emptiness is looking at who?
Well, the mirror is like a very clear it's a clear reflector. Other people are reflectors, but less, they're coming from a different angle, I suppose. But they're all you.
So a couple is being married, and the flower girl and the ring boy, they look up and they see what looked like an old couple getting married. And the grandparents are there and they see what look like very young people getting married. Isn't that part of our experience of otherness?
I lost you there. What?
I guess I'm trying to get at this question of, aren't there multiple consciousnesses? Why multi-generationality? Why dreams? If consciousness could be lucid to itself, why would it dream, or why would there be a world at all?
I know, it's a wonderful story. Yes. Well, I mean, you see, I think that this is the one consciousness. If you want to tell a story, it got a bit bored, so it decided it wanted some adventure and entertainment. It also got lonely. It's a story. This is a story. And, it's all very well loving yourself for endless time, but it's not very interesting. And it's totally predictable. Well, it's come up with a situation where there are others, where it's unpredictable, and it's not in your control. And that is... and therefore, a relationship is possible now in a way it wasn't if you don't have others.
Right.
It's a wonderful, it's not a diminishing, it's an expansion.
Right. I mean, I think maybe a different way to say it is that, in the East, sometimes a distinction between the Buddha and the Bodhisattva. The Buddha wakes up, realizes who he really is, and kind of disavows secular life and identifies with the absence, the emptiness, whereas the Bodhisattva recognizes it, but then also recognizes that the drama was partly in the interests of the emptiness, and willingly submits back to it.
Yes, I don't think your seeing is really mature until you're fully back involved in the world.
Right. See, I think I think we're hitting at the heart of my concerns.
Yeah.
I think that unfortunately, Richard, when some people hear the message, they want to believe something other than what's being said, and so they hear it in a way that I don't know how to say it, but I think people hear and everything is one, and that's not the point.
No, it's half the story.
That's half the story.
Yeah.
That's only half the story.
Well, you can't control how people. You can express as clearly as you can, but you can't control how people will react.
So let's press it further. So I press my fingers, and I push my fingernail into my hand, and I notice that the pain isn't here at the 0 point, it's in my hand. Yeah. And so there is an awareness that it's an emptiness. It's possible. How do I say it? How is that compatible with the claim that there's no discontinuity between the emptiness and the world? So even if my suffering isn't inside me, if the world is suffering and the world is in pain, but that is me, how does that release my stress, or doesn't that just expand the possibility of the stress that I can suffer?
Well, in a way, it does expand it. Yes, you take off the whole world.
See, I think, okay, can we go into that?
Yes. Well, it's both, you see. It's both seeing that the space, if you like, is not harmed and you're free. But at the same time, you feel more and you take on more. And this is probably why some people resist seeing who they are, because they have a gut feeling that it doesn't let them off anything.
Right. So if they realized who they really are, it would be a gut-wrenching agony over all the suffering everywhere.
Well, no, because you have the other side, and you never are given more than you can take in a way. And I didn't feel your pain in your hand. You see, it's limited, but nevertheless, it's not as if you now live in an ivory tower. Far from it.
Well, I know, but I mean, I think some people could accuse it of that. I mean, these philosophies were very rich in Indian caste system, where people tolerate social injustice on the grounds that the true self isn't being violated.
Yes, well, I think that's where the Headless way is a modern scientific Western approach. It's not conforming to a traditional dogma. It's saying what is true. You test it now. Look for yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think these are all very fair responses. I mean, I do think, though, that the concern is, if I say who I really am, can't I really be both? Can't I really be, in my true self, both the public and the private? So it's sort of like, I mean, I guess let me try it this way, that there's a stick that we want to stand up straight, but it's been bent so far in one way that you're bending it really hard in the other direction. Just
so that it comes up in the middle.
Right, but in some way it's an overstatement for that effect.
Yes, because I mean, you don't really have to convince many people of their individual self these days. That is taken for granted. So you accept that fully, profoundly, and celebrate it, but you point to what they're overlooking, which is this openness.
Right.
But of course, they're both.
Right. I mean, in some ways, it's very akin to Buber's I and Thou, if you're familiar with that. You know, it's a twofold of I and Thou and I and it, and we need both. Many people just think of the I Thou, and they don't realize he's addressing the necessity of I it, but you don't want to forget the I Thou.
No, I mean, if you go into the oneness, the public self will catch up with you very quickly.
Right, 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 right.
I mean, it's a central problem. It's a central problem because people do think, that I've awoken to the one. How come I'm still suffering?
Right,
And
right.
it's because you can't leave behind the little one. You can't.
See,
And why would you want
but
to?
how would you respond to the claim? Let's go back to the original claim that that's not the true self. The true self is the dreamless sleep that each of us is at our ground. Each of us is a ground. And look for your own experience. Do you remember having been asleep and having just awoken? Doesn't consciousness always include a memory of the fact that you had slept?
I know. I know what you mean. Exactly. Exactly.
See, I think most people, what they want to say is that they're an awake consciousness that occasionally needs some sleep. I think that's how they think about it. They don't say, I am
I'm a dreamless sleep, occasionally needing to wake up.
right. They don't see themselves as the infinite, spaceless, the boundless ground which upsurges into those correlates of emptiness and world only upon awakeness.
Yes, I know. So that's where you see you can't convince anyone of this. They have to have the experience, which is the experiment.
Right, right.
And and the experiments are very deeply respectful of others.
But aren't there multiple consciousnesses? I mean, isn't that part of? I mean, if we use your language, the way the one sought diversity was through multi-generationality and sentencing itself to have to beginning afresh with an empty consciousness.
I understand, yes. But I mean, it's a paradox, because if I ask you right now, how big is your consciousness? What do you say? How big is your consciousness?
I don't know. There's no boundaries there.
Okay, and when did it begin? Can't say, right?
Well, I think it began somewhere after my birth. So by the time I came to myself intermittently. It's not like one day I woke up and came to self-awareness. It came in flashes and slowly crystallized, for me, very late in life. I think some people it happens younger in life. In my case, it didn't happen until I was darn near a teenager. And so I think I was a very odd case. Some people, I think it happens younger. But I think there is a sense of realizing that one is here and the world is over there that does in some way run accordance with the emergence of the body out from another person. See, I think when you have a very physical, robust, scientific view of this, that you're a part of everything that's ever existed. Again, I would say the material world is one, and that's all there is, and consciousness is nothing, and there's many pockets of it. Rather than saying consciousness is one, and there are many things in the world that consciousness is sort of containing.
So where's the boundary between my consciousness and yours?
Where is the boundary between them?
What's the difference between my consciousness and yours? Your real dreamless sleep consciousness.
Right.
What's the difference?
Well, I don't think any of us directly experiences dreamless sleep. That's part of the rub. It's that we wake up knowing that we have been. And so when I wake up, I'm always caught with difference and otherization. But when I look at you, I can ask you, are you a dreamless sleeper too? I can open you and ask you, do you realize your own vulnerability, and do you set up guards when you know you're going to sleep? See, I think we could accept our kind of vegetative ground and how utterly vulnerable all of us become. Because when I am dreamlessly asleep, I'm physically there in space. And somehow my body is there. I don't think I disappear. But each of us, we emerge to self-awareness only out of sleeping. And this happens not only daily, but you for your infancy, you were largely just asleep. And as you get older, you become, again, there's lots of sleeping that goes on. Whenever you're sick, sleeping goes on, you know? And again, I think it's more of a metaphor for the way that I digest my food, the way I grow my hair, the way that I, process things in my body. It happens without the empty awareness. There just is whatever's going on. I guess I'm not getting into your answer. I don't have an answer for your question of what is it that separates one consciousness from another. I think it's time. I think it's partly time, that my consciousness is at one time and your consciousness is at another. And, they're different rates of change. A consciousness is a rate of change, and that...
Yes, I would probably say then, in my jargon, if you like, that the view out is where we're different, and the view in, I can find nothing here to differ about. I think you probably put it in different words, well, you have been doing. But that, for me, validates both my individual view out, consciousness, which is in time, which is separate from yours,
right,
and this mystery, which isn't in time, right, which has no address or in time or space.
Right.
And
right.
so I've got both.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that makes sense to me. Yeah, the compassion opens up in the recognition of the no separation between our consciousnesses.
Yes, until I see who I am, I only think of us as separate. So I can't know you. When I see who I am, at that level I still cannot know you. I don't know what you're thinking, feeling, etc. But then at the same time, I really, really do know you, because this emptiness goes right round and round the back of you, as it were. I'm seeing who you are, and I am. That's a way of putting it in language.
Right. I mean, why? I don't know how to say it. I mean, I think as long as we're on the same, I think when we sort of did round it off there, that it has to be both. It has to be the recognition, I think of the differences of the world being real. And it's sort of like, I think sometimes we say there's the universal wearer of many masks. And yeah. I think sometimes that's important to realize that the masks are real. And the masks are needed. And I think, some way to say it is that the one couldn't, like in the same way that we don't have a face, the one couldn't be seen except at a distance from itself. And it sort of threw itself out from its own non-existence.
Yes.
In order to have the sort of many-faceted... See, but in that sense, like you could say that the one, if I use your language, the one, it's not an emptiness. It's all sexes and every sex. It's every animal, right? It's just as much every sex and every color and every race and every animal, rather than none of them and in the emptiness.
Yes.
You see what I mean? So but in that sense, I'm a white male and you're a white male. We're a couple of white guys talking to each other. We're given a privileged position that sometimes many people want to say is kind of evading the power that there's a privileged position.
Yes. And we're that, and we're everything.
And the emptiness too.
Yes.
Right. What else is there to say? I don't know.
Well, it's lovely to chat with you.
It's really, I really greatly appreciate you making the time, and I'll give one more shout out to people, to check out your DVD. I think I wish more people would take seriously the Headless experience and would take seriously what Harding has talked about. I think if more people would discover the deep emptiness that is the very worlding of the world, they would be surprised at who they are. They're much older and other than they think.
Yes. Very good.
Okay. Well,
all
Richard,
right.
You take care.
Yes, delightful.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.